Bum, 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 ba, da, 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 da. Hello, everyone. Extreme Cinema Podcast time. I'm Alexander Sternberg. Dog, what the hell did I make you watch this time?
Already, already losing it. That's the most gone to shit intro we've ever done, and it is for this movie. It is for this movie, guys. We watched Thundercrack. This is this is gonna be the most insane
a,
episode of this
a
podcast we
film
have
which,
ever
like,
done, and I'm so ready.
it's a film
Stoney
which,
made me
like,
watch this.
two of the people listening have had. And Dom, like, before we even get into it, we have to make this a thing. How is this film not a thing?
I don't know. I mean, all the reading I did and everything was like, this is now becoming a cult classic. And I was like, I have never heard of it until you told me. Like, I did not know it was a thing at all. Like, I'm not huge in, like, the John Waters area of all that kind of cinema. I've seen the classics, but I've still not seen anybody
Yeah, I
talk about
mean,
this before. Like,
basically neither until I went to the cinema for it. Like I went. So this is like I think literally the most mental
what is
movie
this?
ever
Like,
made. It is like actually the most mental. I was thinking about it when rewatching it yesterday. I actually don't think I've seen anything weirder, and it's this weird, off kilter, black and white 16 millimeter ridiculous movie that combines like a weird sex comedy with like horror melodrama with like actual
yeah.
porn, but like not like sexy porn, just weird, just off. It's like it's like it's literally like the nichest movie ever fucking made.
Oh no.
It's like, you've got this ridiculous, weird 2 hour, 40 minute black and white art piece where no one talks like a human being and it's made on about zero budget and the sound is recorded onto a potato. So that's niche enough as it is. And then you're going to make it X-rated, which makes it even nicher. And then to fucking add to that, it's both like gay and straight. So it's like the it just cutting its audience to absolutely nothing. And like, yeah, it's becoming a bit of a cult. It's very slowly getting a slightly wider cult audience, slightly. I think the screening I went to at the BFI, which I'll talk about in a bit, I think that actually helped make it a thing. Like they did 2 screenings of it as part of the Scala season, which we're going full circle again because I saw Caligula at the Scala season. Both sold out a evening and a matinee. I went to the evening. Edgar Wright actually went to the matinee. He tweeted about it, and there were like letterbox reviews being like, "Can't believe I'm watching porn in the cinema with Edgar Wright." Yeah, it was like I think it literally might be the best, most mental cinema experience like I've ever had, and I have been just begging people to watch this constantly because I actually was convinced to go because when they announced the season, I replied on Twitter to like the head of the BFI being like, "I cannot believe
Yeah.
you're playing Thundercrack," and he was like, "I promise you, it's more mental than even you think it is," and that convinced me
I
to get a
remember you
ticket.
telling me that. Yeah.
Damn fucking
It's
right it
it's
was.
I mean, you've been telling me for months. When did you see this? How long
January,
ago
and I
was
have
it now
not
that you
shut up
saw it?
about this film.
Yeah, you have not shut up about it for the entire time. And I was like, I was gonna watch it, and then I was like, we'll probably do it on the podcast, so I'll leave it.
Oh, it's so extreme cinema podcast, and like, it's like fine line between genius and absolute fucking madness. It's like not a so bad it's good film by any means. It's like a work of fucking genius, but it's like it's got that like Neil Breen. This isn't
Yeah.
like any other film. It's like insane. Like it was really funny as well at the screening because like um
I feel it's more intentional than Neil
Oh,
Breen.
it's
Yeah.
much more intentional than Neil Breen. I mean, like the film. I think the best way of describing it is like it makes you forget what actual movies are, and like it finishes, and then like you go watch something else or you talk to someone, and you're like, oh, this is what actual conversation is like. Like it properly
Yeah.
transports you into this other world, and I don't know. Like it's definitely completely intentional, but I don't know if it was intended to be quite as insane as it was.
Just as insane, nonsensical, absolutely mad. I mean, somebody falls in love with a gorilla, and oh my god, it's it's and that's normal.
I was gonna say that's like not the weirdest thing in this film, and it's like just a dude in the gorilla costume. It's fucking hysterical. Uh,
It's amazing.
like just from the first line of dialogue, where I mean, first of all, I love the intro. The intro is great, and then the first line of dialogue where she's like drunk and listening to the weather forecast, and she's like, "You're just a puppet of the weather bureau. They pull your strings. I bet you don't even know what an isobar is." I'm like, this is incredible, and this is weirdly clever.
It's yeah, it's that's the thing. It has clever moments in it that's just surrounded by utter madness. I've like friggin' hardcore sex for God's sake. It's the weirdest
I don't know
thing.
why they made this movie. I mean, okay, because the guy is Kurt McDowell's obviously, and George Kushner. They're obviously like artists and geniuses in some
Yeah,
level. It's so. It's John Waters is absolutely the best comparison. Actually, no, actually,
obviously.
I would actually say I'm always of the opinion that Rocky Horror Picture Show is a bit mid, even for the time. I think I've never quite understood
Ooh,
why it's as massive as it is.
some
But
people just turned off.
but like what the Rocky Horror Picture Show, yeah, what the Rocky Horror Picture Show fans think Rocky Horror Picture Show is. This is what this is. Like,
Yeah,
and it's got like yeah,
this is
it's raining. I mean, actually, it's a really good comparison. Like it's raining, and they all get stuck in this old dark house, and the person who owns it is mental, and they're all horny all the time, and just compulsively have sex for no reason. In between
yeah. I
this,
guess
like
Rocky Horror is like the PG-13 version of this.
yeah, it is. It absolutely is. But like the thing is, like, okay, I know it's saying like it's X-rated, it's porn. Not a lot. Like
Yes.
it's 2 hours 40. Like this is still, if you cut every single bit of sex out of this film, you would still have like a long feature film.
Oh yeah,
You
yeah,
still have like
definitely.
two
There's
hours
plenty
10.
around it as well. He just had to get get that in there as well. This is a long movie. Oh my god, I was like waiting to watch it last night. I was out for a bit, and then I came back and I was like, oh, I'll watch Thundercrack now. And I was like, excuse me,
Oh,
how
I should have
long?
warned you.
Like,
It's
yeah,
got
I
a
know.
fucking intermission. Like,
I was
okay,
like
so
sitting down for a Scorsese film, like in a
like Killers of the Prairie Blossom. I mean, like, okay, so when the picture started, like, I guess everyone in the cinema took a risk. I don't know how many people
yeah.
remember it from being played at the Scala, which was one of very, very few cinemas to ever show this. Um,
Yeah, I can imagine.
like, so the guy comes out at the start of the film and says, like, this film is 3 hours long, which, I mean, it's 2:40, but there's a 10-minute intermission in the middle, and everyone groaned. Like everyone had clearly taken a risk, including myself. I said to myself, I knew how long it was. I can leave in the intermission if it's boring.
Yeah.
Like everyone clearly took a
Boring
risk.
it is not.
Oh no! It got to the intermission. I was like, I cannot believe it's this. It's like I can't. It's so entertaining. But when you watch it by yourself at home, I think the middle portion where there are like 3 consecutive sex scenes, which is the kind of
Yeah.
porn bit of the, I think that gets tiring. But in the cinema, like everyone had the wildest reaction because like none of the sex is erotic. It's really fucking weird. It's either like
Yeah.
accompanied by the score, which sounds like a Buster Keaton film, like it's super slapstick and not serious, or more often the dialogue, which is like absolutely mental. Like there's a bit where the guy's getting a blowjob and he's
Oh, I
talking
was just
about the
about to
legal
talk about
proceedings
that.
about the flammable girdle company because his wife is something Harry Lou Phillips, heir to the Phillips girdle thing, and everyone keeps saying that full title all the time. He's talking about these like dry legal proceedings, and the woman behind me, like I just had my head over my hat, like my hands over my head, and the woman behind me just said in like perfect comic timing, like my brain is melting, and that's like this is like the peak brain rot cinema. It's
One of
incredible.
my, it's one of my favorite like bits of cinema ever, where he's talking about how he can't get an erection, but he's getting a blowjob while talking about it. It's it's
But
perfect. Like,
that like every line is like genius. I can't pick it. Like when they pick up that guy as a hitchhiker, he's like get your lily white butt in here and out there, and it's all euphemisms. Like what was it,
Yeah,
peaches and cream? Constantly the
yeah,
sexiest lines I think I've ever heard. The least sexy.
yeah.
Um,
Least sex. Are you gonna say what?
like Melinda McDowell, like it's the director's sister in it, which is slightly weird, but like
Yeah.
she's like everyone is deadpan. Like this is so unstructured. Oh my god, but like the acting is like no one except for like Marion Easton, who's like the old lady who lives in the flat. No one is actually a good actor, but their performances are like actually brilliant for this script because the script is so surreal. The script, I've never heard dialogue like this. Like the great all-time writers could only dream of writing dialogue this galaxy-brained. It's insane. And like so their performances where they're barely acting is perfect because you can't act this dialogue and
No.
you get so immersed into it because of how bonkers it all is.
Yeah, Lynch wishes he was this. Like, it's, but
This makes Inland
honestly,
Empire
like
look like the magic roundabout.
it does. Yeah, it's absolutely insane. Like I wanted to go through talk about the plot, but people would bring friggin' doctors if we start. Listen, like they'd think we'd both gone absolutely insane. Like if we like.
I actually really like the storytelling. I mean, I find it so funny that like the intermission happens and then suddenly it's a killer gorilla movie, like out of
Yeah.
absolute nowhere. But like I love the pacing of it at the start where it's like oh everyone's strapped on this road. I mean it's really funny because they're clearly not driving; they're just stuck in a car and
Yeah.
someone's pouring rain on it, and like you see how everyone ends up in the house. And I think Marion Easton is like genuinely really good. Like when she's like, "Oh heavens, I haven't entertained in a while, and I am so drunk. Prairie Blossom has not seen
Yeah.
anything." Like, just
Oh, the start with her where it takes her forever to get ready. Like it's incredible.
she
Like
she gives the whole speech, and the person's trying to say someone's in danger to use the phone. She's giving like it's it's really good. It's like actually great. It's just
yeah, I actually enjoyed this movie. Like I thought like this would be like something where me and you are like going insane, which we are anyway, but like because it's so ridiculous and we kind of hate it but love it. This I don't kind of hate it.
I love it. I fully love
I
this.
just genuinely loved it. Like
I actually legitimately think this is a work of genius, and like I think it's best watched in the kind of way you watch a So Bad It's Good. I think it's best watched with your friends around,
yeah.
having some drinks, having a laugh, like yelling at the screen. But it is like Ricky O. It is like an actual like brilliant film.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Do you want me to do the most extreme cinema podcast, relate different films together
Yes,
in the
yes, yes. Mental
weirdest way?
comparisons. Go.
You're, Southland Tales.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
it's, it's
Absolutely.
Southland Tales.
Especially with the
And now we've
runtime.
we've lost everyone. Like that's it.
Uh,
Everyone's gone.
the official position of the official position of the Extreme Cinema podcast is that Rocky Horror Picture Show is mid, but Southland Tales is like incredible.
Yes. Well, no, I actually really like
You
Rocky
do
Horror,
actually really.
but Southland Tales is actually incredible, and I'll fight you all. So anyway,
What makes you what do you think of the comparisons?
just because it's so insane and the dialogue is just mental in the most brilliant way. In I guess Southland Tales is actual actors that can act and have been proven to be able
But
to
they're
act,
also acting in
but
a
it
really weird way. Like Dwayne the Rock Johnson, especially in that, is like
yeah,
no one's given a performance like that ever, and I actually think it's like a fucking great performance. Like, and casting him as
same,
like a
yeah.
timid person is hilarious. Um,
And I think just in the same way that it's like people would go into this thinking it's like a so bad it's good terrible film that they can just laugh along with, whereas I actually think it's great, and that's the same with Southland Tales. Like,
oh, like yeah, I no, like I fully agree. But the thing is, I think with Southland Tales, like the first time I watched it, I was like, this is the biggest mess I've ever seen in my life. And the second time I watched it, I was like, this is the biggest mess I've seen in my life. But I think it's incredible. This I was always
uh,
like. It's incredible. I think what really sucks about this film is the sound. It's like it's famously difficult to hear. My Blu-ray copy is pretty alright,
Uh-huh.
which I had to get from America. But like the dialogue is the most important bit of the film, so the fact you can't hear everything of it is kind of irritating. Like I would say, if you're watching and your speaker system or your copy isn't good enough for it, you need subtitles because the dialogue is
Yeah.
genius. And I don't know what microphone. I mean, I don't. How does the dialogue sound this bad? You know?
Yeah, no, I mean, because it was made in 1975 and it was basically a porn movie
I mean, yeah. I mean, it
that
was
was
literally
also,
one mic in the middle of the room, probably at all
yeah,
times.
that's what it'll have been. Like, it was made for absolutely nothing and just people just been like, let's do a shit show and it'll be amazing. Which is just, it's just so genius. It's beautiful.
The budget was 9 grand, but then it was like 40 grand in deferred costs. I don't like what like
Yeah,
I'll pay you in like 10 years or something. I don't quite know what that
I
means
think
because
that's what it is.
yeah.
Yeah.
But adjusted for inflation, that is 52 grand, followed by $2 $233,000. So 52 grand up front in 1960, no digital equipment. Film stock would have taken of this fucking nearly 3 hour film stock would have been a
Exactly.
lot. Like that
Yeah, yeah.
is yeah, that is DIY filmmaking.
Yeah, it's DIY to the most DIY. And imagine if you said now that there were a film made for 52 grand, people would be like, "What? What on earth?"
I mean, when you adjust
It's,
Clerks for inflation, it's above that. I always think about that. I think
yeah,
that is basically the budget adjusted for inflation of the Blair Witch Project.
yeah, which is famously like one of the most like least like
Uh,
expensive films ever.
in the Blair Witch Project, they returned the camera to Best Buy after using it for the film.
Exactly, and they didn't have to buy film stock. And like,
No, some of it's on 16 mil. Most of it's
is
digital
it
though.
16? Yeah, I thought quite a bit of it was.
Um, but like, I think this film is like, for what it is, like there's like aspects of it that are super well made. Like I said, it's like really atmospheric. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
and it's like some of the cinematography is genuinely really great, like with the shadows. Some of it is like the most point and shoot shit you'll ever see. Like some of it is just like, oh, we're doing a scene, I don't know, film wherever, but
yeah.
some of it's fucking
Film
great.
it.
And some of the
Yeah,
lighting's
yeah.
great and some of the lighting's bad. But you know what I really love? Like I like in the opening credits, I'm sure they just didn't have a model of a house or a house, so they used a drawing of the house, which
Oh,
reminded
it's
me of
just a drawing.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I love that creativity, like the way the flashbacks are done. They almost feel like from the 30s, and it's like these like floating specters, like when she's talking about the flammable girdle party or
Uh-huh.
something. It's so funny. Or like her husband dying because of the locusts attack. It's
Yeah.
I
I love the a son that no longer exists is my favorite line in the entire thing.
you won't be able to predict what the next line is. Like this film is like it exists on another plane of existence. Like no structure for the whole film. Structure's out the window, but like in a scene, in a conversation, structure's out the fucking window. Like there are times people are basically speaking in non sequiturs, and it's like
Yeah.
fascinating dialogue.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was fascinated the entire way through, and half of the time I was just like, where did this come from? Like, it just was like it has no meaning, it has no through thought, nothing really pays off, but it's all kind of beautiful at the same time.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And like George Kirshner's script, it was originally conceived as like, oh, we'll shoot a very short porn or something. That was it.
Yeah.
And then it like blossomed into an 190-page art movie. Like part of this getting a reconsideration is like when I saw it at the start of the year and you Googled it afterward, because I had to know more about this, the genre said like adult film, which by the way, I think Caligula still says adult film when you
I
Google it
think it
in.
does, yeah.
In fact, it says that for like a bunch of films that frankly aren't. Like I think it says that for like I Am Curious Yellow and stuff. But now you Google it, and this is only 6 months down the line. and it says horror comedy, which, like, there's hardcore sex in this, but yeah, it's a John Waters film essentially, or necromantic. And frankly,
Yeah.
it's only pushing it, like, if you're not offended by that stuff, which I don't think anyone listening to this podcast would be offended by anything like that, like, it's a very watchable film, and it's kind of, if you're not offended by sex, it's like not that extreme. I mean, it is, because no film has hardcore sex and get away with it, even though I was wondering if you
No.
could push this at an 18 now. I was wondering it might be able to just about scrape an 18.
Mm, probably. I mean, Gaspar Noé
I
exists,
was gonna
so
say, like,
probably.
Love. Like, it's
Yeah,
not more
exactly.
graphic than Love is. It's just a hell of a lot fucking weirder.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Or
Yeah.
like, have you seen
I
Short
mean,
Bust? I've not, but
no, I've not. No. I was gonna say Love's probably more intense anyway. Like it's a more
yeah,
fucked up film. So
like, that's the thing. Like, like, avant-garde filmmakers, I don't mean like avant-garde in the literal sense like Stan Brakhar, have been pushing real sex in film, like Lars von Trier and Nymphomaniac. Nymphomaniac
yeah,
got an
yeah,
18. This will be fine. Like,
yeah,
you know, they've been pushing real sex in films for a while since the time, and not having to make it you know, adult film. This is just ahead of its time. If someone made this in 2002, it would have gotten an 18 rating probably. And I mean,
yeah.
they never released this in the UK. The Scala Cinema Club could play it because they were a private members club. So you legal, like, they could play Sala, for example, as long as something
Hmm.
hadn't been formally banned, they literally could play it. And so they had one of the five prints of this film, and they zhuzh it
Wow.
out in the middle of an all-nighter. And Mark Kermode said, I think when the Scala documentary came out, he said this about the documentary. I don't think he was featured in it, but he said, like, he went to an all-nighter at the Scala, and when they played Thundercrack, he legitimately thought the police were gonna raid it. He was like, how could this be legal? um and the Scala, of course, was like, no stranger to doing illegal shit, because they
No.
famously closed down because they played Clockwork Orange and got sued by Warners.
Yeah, yeah.
um which is
I did
fucking
not know
baller
that.
move. Yeah,
Did
they
not know that about Commode.
um yeah, that was, I think that also got it. Like, when I went to see Basket Case at that screening too, and I bought my ticket with my mate for Basket Case and bought my
Yeah.
Thundercrack ticket at the same time. And he was like, they're playing Thundercrack, and I was like, you know what that is? And he's like, yeah, Kermode mentioned it. So
Ah,
slowly but sure, we got to make it a thing. Why hasn't Nyx talked about this on YouTube? Why haven't,
yeah.
like, horrible reviews, like the ones that do these niche horror movies? How has this never been covered ever? This is
Going weirdly
perfect.
back, do you think Cinema Snob ever talked about it? He did all that porn, didn't he?
Let me have a fucking Google.
Yeah, have a Google. Because he always talked about that kind of stuff and he was known for it. So, I mean, terrible guy. I'll call him out, I don't care.
Nope, he never did.
But, no. No, did he not? Oh
Never
my
did.
god. Wow. Let's make it big.
This is like my goal with this episode, is to, like, make it a thing. Like, this is proper boundary pushing, experimental, like, we 40 years later, 50 almost years later, because this is
Yeah.
1975, we have not caught up to Thundercrack. We are not making films on the level of Thundercrack yet.
No, absolutely not. 1975 is insane when you watch this. When when you think about what was happening in that era as well, like to release Thundercrack, like I mean, I know nobody probably saw this apart from
Like, well,
obviously like
it actually played at the Los Angeles Film Festival. Buck
no,
Henry,
did it?
yeah, so Buck Henry was one of the programmers. He co-wrote The Graduate and co-created the
Yeah,
TV
yeah.
version of Get Smart, and he pushed for this to be played, and it got tons of walkouts apparently.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah. I mean, people were losing the shit over Waters back then, so imagine seeing this, which is like him on
That's the thing. Imagine
crack,
making
basically.
pink
Like,
flamingos look tame.
yeah, exactly.
We're not.
Like,
It's no hyperbole. You, like, even with our audience who love these weird cult films, and we've talked about Cannibal Holocaust, we've talked about Necromantic, we've talked about Possession, Audition, weird out there films like Footmen or Devil's Story, I
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
don't think like half our audience are ready for this. Like, that's how weird this is. This is like actually the most ridiculous, weird, out there, unlike any film I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, probably same. Like, this is easily the most insane thing we've talked about in just a pure mental kind of sense. Not in like a, it's not as extreme as others, especially if you don't care about sex, which neither of us do. So it's like on film. So like, but it's still just insane. And yeah, I don't think most of his audience will have heard of it, and they'll go find it and then be like, "What on earth?" It just watched. Like,
Yeah, try and find an HD copy if you're watching this.
yes, yeah,
um,
I found one quite easily. So,
like, yeah, the restoration apparently was like an absolute pain. So like the negatives are just completely presumed lost, and there were only 5 16 mm prints made of it. So one is seized by Canadian customs. I don't think anyone's got it. Like, I think that's probably lost forever.
yeah, probably.
Three of them were cut down to try and make it more commercial. Like, there were attempts to make an R-rated version of this, but like, it's the
Wow,
least commercial movie fucking ever. So,
I'm gonna say,
good, you know, fine, cut the sex out of this film. It's still a ridiculous, surreal nightmare movie.
yeah, that's the thing. Even if you got rid of that stuff, people would just be like, "What?"
Yeah.
Like,
So like,
like what is going on?
I mean, the whole film, you're like, what even? I don't like I said, like you're in a completely different plane of reality. Like, you just go with it. Like, you forget how people talk. You forget what life is. You forget what like it literally just makes you forget. Like I said, like you finish it and you just start having a conversation with someone. You have to like adjust to regular life after it. It's like no other film has done that. Maybe a Breen, I don't know, maybe Fateful Findings. Uh
Yeah, but that's the thing. Even like you can't compare it to Breen and Faithful Findings because I mean, you can in a sense. In like, yeah, the dialogue like messes with your brain, and you're like, "Peep, what is people?" But but like, but Breen's just insane, and this is made by people who knew what they were
Geniuses.
doing, or at least like they were artists, like full on artists, and it's oh god,
I
it's insane.
That's the thing. I think they were just on another level. Like
Yeah,
there are, it's like an actual like the creativity in this is like, you know, when you watch a So Bad It's Good, you watch a Neil Breen or The Room, you go, have you ever seen a film before? What the hell is this? Like, you don't know what you're doing. Here you go, have you ever seen a film before because you've created something totally unique?
yeah, that's the thing. You don't see that much in, I mean, art in general. If we wanted to get really philosophical with it, like
No,
it's
I
this is
agree. I think
so
this is like a
unique.
genius
Like,
work of art.
yeah, exactly. Like, and some people would watch this, hear us say that, and then watch this and be like, "What the fuck are you two talking about?" But genuinely, it's really good.
Man,
Like,
some people are not going to be ready for this. Like, I just have to say it. Some people in our audience are not going to be fucking ready for this.
no, and like me and you have watched absolutely everything. I mean, I've seen the most out there, ridiculous, terrific, and everything films ever. I mean, if anybody finds my letterbox, you'd see how many films I've fucking seen. And this is this is up there in just one of the most what things
Yeah,
I've ever watched in my entire life.
I'm actually so glad we're talking about this because I have been begging everyone I know to watch it. And because of the runtime, people are a little put off. Like,
Yeah,
I'm just
definitely.
telling everyone right now, you will be entertained throughout.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's the thing. It's a long movie, and like you said, that middle bit drags a bit just because it's like, yeah, I've seen sex before, and it's not even that good. It's just weird.
It's just weird. Well, that's why it's still vaguely entertaining because it's like,
Yeah,
it's just really strange and just unerotic and bizarre. So
yeah, completely.
it's still very in keeping with the tone of the movie being like this complete other world where nothing resembles reality.
Yeah, it doesn't take you out of the movie, which is good because I've seen films that are like this that just include those kind of scenes where you're just like, oh, that's happening now. That's taken me out of it completely. This it fits with the tone, like you say, in such a weird way that it's just like I'm watching something not made on this earth.
I love that we can watch this now. Like, yeah, there was one uncut print, one print which was like completely heavily damaged. So they had to restore it from that one print because the original VHSs and the bootlegs that were made from that were just the damaged cut prints. And they announced it in
Mhm.
2004, and it took till 2015. The restoration took
Oh
ages. It was
God.
like it's insane. And then like just as before they were meant to release it, they found 15 extra seconds of footage. And they're like, well, delayed because we got to put this 15 seconds of footage, which I admire so much.
I do admire that. Yeah.
So like, yeah, like I was able to see a copy where you can more or less hear most things. In the cinema, I don't think I had a problem hearing the dialogue, but like I know infamously back in the day when you watch this on film, it was really difficult to hear, and that's like the
Yeah.
last thing you want for this film.
That's the thing. It's you'd think it wouldn't be that bad, but this is a dialogue heavy film, incredibly dialogue heavy with a lot of just insane things said that you're like, cool. Like that's one of the
Tarantino
coolest
could
things.
only dream of making
Yeah,
dialogue this good.
Tarantino could only dream because it's so out there and insane, made by somebody that's got to not be human. That it just sounds like nothing you've ever really heard.
I really want to watch more Kurt McDowell. I want to watch Sparky's Tavern, which someone uploaded onto Internet Archive. I imagine it's literally the only way of watching it. It might actually be someone
Yeah,
involved in the film who did that. Like he bounced between. He did some like pornographic shorts. I don't know if they're artistic or commercial or whatnot. And like he did like non-pornographic films as well. Sparky's Tavern also got Melinda McDowell in it, which I really like. But it's sad. You know, he clearly was this incredible artist on a level like this film is on at another level of human. It's unique. It's like like I said, galaxy brain. It's on another plane of existence. And unfortunately, he died in 1987 at age 42 of AIDS.
yeah.
Because God knows what he would have made, especially. You know, if we're slowly coming back to the McDowell Renaissance where everyone knows this guy's name, I can only dream of that happening, you know.
Oh, that'd be
Be good.
beautiful.
Like, you know, like, this was a complete DIY film. Like, actually, after the film was released, McDowell's worked as a janitor in a cinema in San Francisco called the Roxy, which screened Thundercrack regularly at 8 p.m. on Fridays because it was like way too long to play at midnight, unfortunately. Uh,
Yeah,
so like, yeah, that's imagine like that's your job afterward. You're cleaning the cinema, which is playing your film, and he actually later married the cinema's owner, Rob Evans, who owns like the rights to his
Robert.
film now
Yeah,
and has
yeah,
screened his films at the cinema still. Like that's an amazing story, I think.
yeah. It's such a interesting life as well. Like, I'd love to do for McDowell what Red Letter Media did for Neil Breen. Just
Like I'm trying to think if there's like a better like because yeah, Breen is a making the worst films ever, but they're so weird and unique and they're so him that it's transfixing. I'm trying to think if there's like a better comparison than Breen that's like a cult filmmaker who people really like in a less ironic sense or a non-ironic
yeah. I mean,
sense.
it's just Waters, isn't it? That is the only other one that I could think of.
Waters is absolutely closest you get, but Waters is now
Yeah,
like a household name almost. Like
household name. Yeah.
I've never been a huge I was gonna say Roger Waters. I've never been a huge John Waters fan. Like he's always one of those people who I think he's an amazing person, but
Yes.
like I've found Pink Flamingos and Multiple Maniacs, which are the only two I've seen from him. I've found them to be like fine, frankly.
Yeah. I like Pink Flamingos enough.
But there is actually a thing that this movie should be much more famous for, and it's not. And I actually picked it up when I saw it in the cinema. I was like, that's not a coincidence. Did you pick it up?
Hmm.
Unless you read about it.
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, one character's name in this film is called Chandler, and the other character's name is called Bing. That is not
No.
a coincidence.
Oh my god, really?
Martha Kaufman and David Crane like loved this film, and Chandler Bing, like that's confirmed. Chandler Bing is a combination of that. So that alone, I don't know why people don't talk about this more, because that's insane.
That's so funny. I mean, one of the biggest TV shows of all time has a, has a character named after a Thundercrack characters is
One of the
mental.
nichest cult movies of all
Yeah.
time. Like I picked it up in the film, and I was like, "That's not a coincidence." And then I was looking at the wiki or the IMDb or an article about it, and I was like a trusted article about it, and I was like, "Nope, not a
Yeah.
coincidence at all." And I actually love that.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing that they put that into into Friends of all things. That's beautiful.
Into the, not just one of the biggest, one of the most, possibly the definition of a mainstream show. I think Friends is brilliant, by the
Yeah.
way, but the definition of the most mainstream television show, one of them ever, in the nichest, craziest, weirdest movie ever. I love it.
Yeah. That's actually kind of beautiful. Just like that connection in like the two ends of the not two ends of the artistic spectrum because Friends, as you said, I actually like as well, but still the two ends of how people view.
Commercial spectrum.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And there's another way which I'm going to allege I think this has influenced more mainstream art. Like, Ari Aster so ripped off the end of this for Beau is Afraid.
No, that's true. Actually,
It, like, when I saw this film, or when I saw Beau is Afraid. God, when did Beau is Afraid? No, I saw this film after Beau is Afraid. Um, I,
yeah, you did. Yeah.
yeah, I was like, yep, that is directly, the giant penis monster man is directly ripped off from this film. Could be a coincidence that those things happen, but also it just feels like they go into the locked off room in the big house, and
Yeah,
this thing's
yeah.
there. It's like, it's very similar.
It's very similar, and if there's working director that would have seen Thundercrack, it's probably either Edgar Wright or Ari Aster. So,
Oh my god. Uh, do we want to do final thoughts?
oh, what can you say? I mean, it's insane and it's beautiful and it's d- really good. Watch it. Yeah, I know it's some of the stuff can be like people don't want to watch hardcore sex and stuff in films. I get that, but just watch it. It's great. Skip past the middle bit if you need to. It's good.
You know the
Like,
thing as well. Like, we barely talked about the plot. We barely talked about individual scenes. I'm only like, this was
it's
a very structureless conversation, and it kind of doesn't even matter. Like, what
no,
I could. There's like no way of doing this film justice unless you watch it. Like, it's so out there, and like I said, I think even with our audience, half of you guys are gonna watch this and be like, I can't even. But this needs to be a thing. And if you're
it
the
needs
kind
to
of
be a
person
thing.
who will actually vibe with this, like Dom and I do, you will love this. This is legitimately one of my favorite films ever. But getting to see it in the cinema was one of the best cinema experiences I've ever had. Like, not a day goes by where I don't think about this film anymore. It's like I like it is honestly like Southland Tales. When I first saw that back in 2020, I haven't stopped thinking about Southland Tales,
Yeah,
and this is like one of very very few films that can occupy the same space of like I can't stop thinking about it. It's just so unique and incredible, and like I was hooked from the second it starts. And if anything, when the hardcore sex does start, or like, like any kind of unsimulated act, like when she's cleaning her in the bathtub, it actually is like,
uh,
it's like shocking at first, not in like a I'm offended way, like in a, oh, I was watching a movie, and then this is, you
yeah.
don't see this in most films. Again, like directors Noé, Lars von Trier, uh Catherine Briette, I never know how to pronounce her name. Like, people have been
Lots of
doing this shit,
French guys.
anything made from France.
Yeah.
Like, you know, this is less, putting real sex in your film is still boundary pushing, but it's not unheard of anymore.
No,
But in
no,
1975, oh boy, the world was not ready for Thundercrack.
no. The world will never be ready for
The world
Thundercrack,
will
but we
never
need to
be ready
make
for
it.
Thundercrack.
We want to make the world ready for Thundercrack. That is,
That's
that is,
literally my mission statement for this episode.
yeah.
And if you're like looking at this episode in like 2050, because this is like become the new The Room or something, the new Rocky Horror, you're well. Not to be
You're welcome.
those people, but we knew about it first.
We were there. We we
40,
were
50
pushing for this
years
movie.
late.
Yeah, I'm dead now. This is.
Do 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 do. I love the theme tune.
It
So,
is great, yeah.
on that note, I believe I did say in the last episode it's the penultimate one, but we are last minute adding an extra
Oh,
episode onto this season. Um, recently a lot of people I know watched a movie I had never heard of called Elves from 1989, and they all had like the most visceral reaction I think I've ever seen of anyone to films. So I was thinking the other day, you know what? Neither of us have seen it. I don't think any of us know anything. Well, actually, I've been told what the plot is, but like, we don't know anything about it really. So it's a complete
nope.
risk, and I hope it doesn't backfire for the season finale. But we're gonna watch 1989's Elves for the first time, basically completely blind, and you will get our
Yeah,
reaction in next week's season finale.
it'll be an interesting one. We've done a few where we've never seen it before, but we've kind of known what we're going into. This is the blindest I think we've been for a
Oh,
movie.
definitely.
So yeah, let's see.
Absolutely, definitely. Um, I mean, compared to Thundercrack, it's going to be like, I don't know, Titanic or something.
Yeah, Kate Winslet is.
Anyway, thank you all for listening. Please watch Thundercrack
Bye.
and take care.
Watch Thundercrack.
Bye. You've been listening to the Extreme Cinema Podcast with Alexander Sternberg and Dom Loach. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider subscribing as it really helps us out. The original artwork for the podcast was done by George Arnold. The Extreme Cinema Podcast, available where all good podcasts are available.